Second team took their spot and started to spread out. Eclipse had grown to full size and stepped up to the laser line in the center of the pit. Glimmer turned invisible. Ranger took position in front of their rack. Ion stood at Eclipse's side and turned into his lightning form. Wave and Caution stood behind the rack, all the way against the wall. Wave started to use her water powers to spray a river of water into the air. A downpour was hitting their side of the pit. They looked like they had rehearsed this. First team stood still and looked at Darkspeed. Stick to the plan. Olympian, take out Eclipse as fast as you can, then go after Ranger. See if you can find Glimmer and bench her. The rest of you, guard the rack. Midas, she said, could you make me a sword of that super strong alloy you use? Sure, Midas said as he quickly touched the ground and pulled up a bar of steel. He molded it into a straight single-edged sword. He felt good doing something. He was very nervous. She took the sword and touched the blade edge. Super sharp. I made a molecular edge on it. It should do a good job for you. Thanks, she said and became invisible. 10, 9, 8. Spurs started counting. Olympian became airborne and hovered at Eclipse's eye level. He stared straight at him, waiting for the countdown. Darkspeed was shaking out his hands, getting ready to make his run for the pins. 4, 3, 2. The count continued. Bioforce transformed into a larger hulking version of herself. Virtuoso stood next to Midas, who had made a steel bunker around them, with a small port to see out of. He was waiting for the word go to bench anyone making contact with the ground on the other side of the pit. 1! Spurs said and blew the horn. Ion crossed the center and went straight for Midas. He flew his lightning form into the bunker through the porthole. He quickly red-benched Midas and Virtuoso. Darkspeed projected blackness onto second team's side of the pit and rushed in. The water he splashed through did little to stop his forward movement. It did keep him from sensing the invisible barrier in front of him. Darkspeed crashed headfirst into the clear, solid illusion projected by Ranger. He was quick to move the illusionary wall around Darkspeed when he fell backwards, pinning him and surrounding him. Caution started to project a terrifying fear into the members of First Team. Bioforce fell backwards and screamed, she was so shaken by the feeling. Olympian turned the fear into even more adrenaline as he continued to give Eclipse a sound beating. Eclipse was losing, but still trying to hang on. Twice he had tried to simply bear hug Olympian rather than fight. She had long ago learned to tame her fears. Today was no different. The fear projected by Caution made her shake, but it didn't stop her from her task. She was hunting Glimmer. Glimmer knew she couldn't evade her sword-wielding counterpart forever and decided to strike first. From above Glimmer fired a blast of bright hot light that struck She. She had her nano hood around her head and was mostly protected from the heat. Glimmer had given her position away. She reached one hand up and caught Glimmer in her attraction power. Glimmer was yanked forcibly toward the armed She. Glimmer tried to avoid the now very dangerous Japanese girl with razor-sharp weapon, but it was too late. She had sliced Glimmer across the stomach, then one leg. Glimmer shrieked in pain and tried to move back. The slightly faster She was on top of her quickly. The sword made all the difference as Glimmer was sent to the red bench room. Olympian had Eclipse beat down and was trying to finish him off when the horn went off again. Olympian looked up to see Spurs with the horn. That's match. Second team wins. Spurs yelled and everyone stopped fighting. What? Olympian said as he looked around. Darkspeed was trapped inside of a clear bubble. She became visible, perched on the wall behind Caution. Bioforce was still cowering on their side of the pit. Midas and Virtuoso were outside the pit next to Spurs. Worst of all 6 pins were on second team's side. Ion was standing next to second team's rack. Easy to do with no one blocking me, he said in his Australian accent. First team up here, Connor said. As they gathered to him, he began. Go get cleaned up and meet me in the hotel dining room in 20 minutes. Wear your best civilian regular clothes. Why? Darkspeed asked. It's a tradition here. The 2 teams that fought and their coaches have dinner and social time together. It helps keep hard feelings from creeping in. Get going. Back in the dorm room, Darkspeed was livid. Didn't you see me trapped? I could have used a little help. Olympian didn't want to hear it. You said beat our counterparts. I was beating mine. Darkspeed looked over at She. Don't you dare look at me. I got mine. I was about to get a second one too, She said. Darkspeed looked at Midas and Virtuoso. What about you two? What happened? He said. I told you I couldn't take Ion. He's too fast for me. You said you and Olympian would take up the slack. Olympian won a pounding and you went for the win. Remember? Darkspeed looked over at Bioforce, who still seemed shaken. Don't look at me. We followed your strategy. If we lost, it was because of you, she said. Yeah, they seem to really have a plan, she said. They benched or occupied each one of us so Ion could race the pegs back to their rack. Whatever. We only have a few minutes to get to dinner, Darkspeed said as he blinked into his room. Looks like you're not the only one who hates losing, Virtuoso said to Midas. In the hotel, first team teleported in together. Connors was waiting for them. How are these new outfits in battle? He asked. We didn't last long enough to find out, Darkspeed said. They worked great. When Glimmer hit me with her light, the suit dampened it enough that I was able to keep from taking real damage. She nearly boiled my skin off before, she said. Good. Sounds like it's working the way you designed it to. Everyone else likes them. Or would you rather go back to Gray's? Connors asked. No, these are much better, Olympian said. You're going for the whole warrior thing, aren't you? Connors said to Olympian. I sure am. Second team entered the hotel through the main lobby doors. First team froze when they saw their competition. Go over there and congratulate them. You first, Darkspeed, and don't be petty, Connors said. Darkspeed walked straight over to Ranger and held out his hand. You played a good game today, congratulations. Thanks, I appreciate it. I wasn't sure we'd catch you in that trap. Our plan kind of hinged on it, Ranger said. Your plan? Yeah, we've been working it out for the last few days. When did you know we would be your opponent in the match? Darkspeed asked. Since we formed into teams. You didn't know? No, our coach didn't tell us. Maybe he didn't know. He knew. First coach is the one who makes the schedule, Ranger said. Darkspeed tried to keep his disappointment from coming to the surface. Regardless, good job on your win. Thanks, Darkspeed. Other members of first teams were on their way over to speak to second team. Darkspeed was on his way to speak with Connors. Why didn't you tell me second team was going to be our opponents? Darkspeed asked with force. Come with me outside, Connors said calmly. The two of them made their way outside, almost unnoticed. She saw them go outside and walked close enough to the door to hear their conversation. Virtuoso saw this and connected herself to She so she could listen through her. You knew we were facing second team. You made the schedule and you didn't tell us? Darkspeed said like he was ready to fight. No, I didn't. How does it make you feel? Connors said. How do I feel? Is this a trick question? No, no trick. I want you to know how it feels to not know what you're up against. Because when you're out in the real world, you won't have the luxury of being able to study your opponent. But they will study you. The enemy will always know who you are. You and your team will always be at an intelligence disadvantage. They'll know your real name, your family, likes, dislikes, your weakest moments. You will never be on an even footing with your enemy. You need to start learning that now. What about them? They knew it was us and had a plan on how to beat us. I'm not their coach, I'm yours. And you shouldn't come up with a plan to beat just one team. You need strategies that will always work for your team. That's your job as leader. Know what works for your team. Darkspeed turned his back to Connors and started to go back into the building. Darkspeed felt himself held fast. He couldn't move. What's going on? Darkspeed was quickly turned in the air by unseen forces. Connors was right in front of his face. Telekinesis, Connors said as he stepped closer. Never turn your back and walk away from me until I say the conversation is over. If you do, you get a one-way ticket back to Salt Lake, got it? Darkspeed pushed his ego down and nodded. Connors released him and Darkspeed made his way back into the hotel. She was quick enough to get out of the way before she was seen. She looked back into the crowd and saw Virtuoso staring at her with a shocked face. You were listening, weren't you? She thought. Sorry, but yes. He really kicked Darkspeed while he's down, Virtuoso thought to She. Maybe he needs it. Connors has been at this more than any of us. Did your father say anything about his training methods? Father only said that training under him can be difficult. On the bright side, he said it gets better quick. Well, I'm not seeing it. Hey, heads up!